The numbers on Dr. Hana Kim's computer screen made no sense. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the data again. The ocean tide measurements from the past 6 months showed something impossible. The water levels were changing in ways that should not happen. Hana worked at the Seoul Oceanographic Institute. She had been studying ocean tides for 15 years. She knew how the moon pulled the water up and down twice each day. She knew the patterns by heart. But these new numbers were wrong. The equipment must be broken, she said to herself. She picked up her coffee cup and took a sip. The cold coffee tasted bitter. Outside her office window, the sun was setting over the harbor. Fishing boats returned from the sea with their daily catch. Everything looked normal. But Hana knew something was very wrong with the ocean. She called her colleague Dr. June Park. His office was 3 floors up in the same building. June was older than Hana and had worked with ocean data for 20 years. If anyone could explain these strange numbers, it would be him. June, can you come down to my office? I need you to look at something, Hana said into the phone. 10 minutes. Later, June knocked on her door. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He always wore the same blue sweater to work. What is keeping you here so late? June asked as he sat down. Hana turned her computer screen toward him. Look at these tide measurements. The water levels are dropping, not just here in Seoul, but everywhere along the coast. June put on his reading glasses and studied the data. His face showed confusion. This cannot be right. The moon's pull should make the tides higher this week, not lower. That is what I thought too. But I checked the equipment 3 times. I even called the monitoring stations in Bizen and Jeju Island. They have the same readings. June frowned. Maybe there is a problem with all the equipment at once. Hana shook her head. I thought about that. But look at this. She opened another file on her computer. These are satellite images of coastlines around the world. The water levels are dropping everywhere. In Japan, California, Australia, everywhere. The 2 scientists sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the harbor lights began to turn on. The fishing boats were tied up for the night. There has to be an explanation, June said finally. Ocean tides do not just change without a reason. I know, that is why I want to check the moon tonight. Maybe something is different up there. June looked surprised. You think something is wrong with the moon? I do not know what to think. But the moon controls the tides. If the tides are changing, maybe the moon is changing too. That night, Hana stayed at the institute. The building was quiet and empty. Most of the other scientists had gone home hours ago. She took the elevator to the top floor where the telescope room was located. The telescope was not very big, but it was powerful enough to see the moon clearly. Hana had used it many times before to study how the moon's position affected the tides. She pointed the telescope at the moon and looked through the eyepiece. The moon looked normal at first. It was full and bright in the clear night sky. But as Hana watched, she noticed something strange. The moon seemed to be moving. Not the normal movement that happened as Earth turned. This was different. The moon appeared to be slowly drifting away from Earth. Hana adjusted the telescope and looked again. She was right. The moon was definitely farther away than it should be. She had looked at the moon through this telescope many times. She knew exactly how big it should appear. Tonight, it looked smaller. She quickly wrote down what she saw and took photographs through the telescope. Then she called June at his home. June, you need to come back to the institute right now. Hana, it is almost midnight. What is so important? The moon is moving away from Earth. I can see it through the telescope. There was silence on the phone. Then June said, I will be there in 20 minutes. When June arrived, Hana showed him what she had discovered. He looked through the telescope for a long time. His face grew serious. You are right, he said. The moon is definitely farther away than normal. But this is impossible. The moon has been in the same orbit for millions of years. I know it seems impossible, but look at my measurements. The moon is moving away from us, and the ocean tides are getting weaker. They are connected. The next morning, Hana and June called a meeting with other scientists at the institute. They invited Dr. Suki Choi from the National Space Observatory and young graduate student Minho Lee, who was working on his ocean research project. Minho was excited to be included in the meeting. He was only 24 years old and had been studying at the institute for 2 years. He loved learning about the ocean and dreamed of becoming a famous scientist like Hana and June. Dr. Suki Choi arrived first. She was a small woman with short, black hair who studied stars and planets. She looked serious as she sat down at the meeting table. "I heard you have some unusual data to share," Suki said. Hana spread her papers and photographs on the table. "We think the moon is moving away from Earth, and when it moves away, the tides get weaker." Suki picked up one of the photographs. "This is very strange. My observatory has not detected any changes in the moon's orbit." "Maybe your equipment is not sensitive enough," June suggested. "Our equipment can detect the smallest changes in space. If the moon was moving, we would know." Minho raised his hand shyly. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course," Hana said with a smile. "What would happen if the moon really did move away from Earth?" The 3 older scientists looked at each other. It was Suki who answered. "If the moon moved far enough away, the tides would almost disappear. The ocean would become very still. Many sea animals depend on tides to live and feed. Without tides, the ocean ecosystem would collapse." "And that is not the worst part," June added. "The moon also helps keep Earth stable as it spins. Without the moon's pull, our planet might start wobbling. The weather could become very dangerous." Hana felt a chill run down her back. "That is why we need to figure out what is happening. If the moon continues to move away, life on Earth could be in danger." The meeting continued for 2 more hours. They decided to collect more data from oceanographic stations around the world. They would also use the Space Observatory's powerful telescopes to watch the moon carefully. As the other scientists left, Minho stayed behind. "Dr. Kim, do you really think the world could be in danger?" Hana looked at the young student. She remembered being his age and full of questions about the ocean. "I hope not, Minho, but we are scientists. Our job is to find the truth, even when it scares us." That night, Hana could not sleep. She kept thinking about the moon drifting away and the tides growing weaker. She had spent her whole career studying the ocean. She knew how important the moon was for life on Earth. She got up and looked out her apartment window. The moon was high in the sky, looking peaceful and normal. But Hana knew that looks could be deceiving. Something was happening up there, something that could change everything. The discovery was just the beginning. 3 days had passed since the meeting. Hana arrived at the institute early in the morning with 2 cups of hot coffee. She knocked on June's office door and handed him one of the cups. "Any news from the other monitoring stations?" she asked. June looked tired. He had been working late every night, collecting data from oceanographic stations around the world. The same pattern everywhere. Tides are getting weaker in Japan, Australia, Brazil, and Norway. This is definitely a global problem. Hana sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I called Dr. Suki Choi yesterday. She wants to meet with us today. She says her observatory has found something interesting about the moon." At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Hana and June drove to the National Space Observatory. The building was located on a hill outside the city. It had 3 large telescope domes on the roof and looked like something from a science fiction movie. Dr. Suki Choi met them at the entrance. She looked excited but also worried. "Thank you for coming. I need to show you what we discovered last night." She led them through the building to a room filled with computer screens and complex equipment. Young Minho Lee was already there, looking at one of the screens with wide eyes. Minho wanted to help with the research, Suki explained. He has been very helpful organizing our data. Minho looked up and smiled. Dr. Choi, should I show them the moon photographs? Yes, that is a good place to start. Minho clicked on his computer and a large photograph of the moon appeared on the wall screen. This picture was taken 3 months ago, he said. Then he clicked again. This one was taken last night. Hana and June stared at the 2 images. The moon in the recent photograph looked exactly the same as the older one, except for one thing. There were small bright spots on the surface that had not been there before. What are those lights? Hana asked. Suki pointed to the bright spots. We do not know yet, but they are definitely new. Our telescope can see very small details on the moon's surface. These lights were not there before. Could they be reflections from the sun? June suggested. That is what we thought at first. But look at this. Suki showed them another image. This photograph was taken when the moon was in shadow. The lights are still there. They are producing their own light somehow. Hana felt her heart beating faster. Are you saying there is something on the moon that is making light? It looks that way. And there is something else. The lights are not random. They seem to be arranged in patterns. Minho opened another file. On the computer, I have been studying the patterns. They look almost like the designs that people make with electrical circuits. The 4 scientists stood in silence, staring at the glowing spots on the moon's surface. Finally, June spoke. This changes everything. If there is some kind of technology on the moon, that could explain why it is moving away from Earth. But who could have put technology on the moon? Hana asked. No country on Earth has that capability. Suki looked thoughtful. Maybe the technology has been there for a very long time. Much longer than human civilization. That evening, Hana decided to visit the Institute's library. The library was old and filled with books about ocean science, astronomy, and the history of scientific discovery. She thought there might be some old records about unusual moon behavior. She found Minho already there, sitting at a table surrounded by old books and papers. His hair was messy and he looked like he had been reading for hours. What are you looking for? Hana asked as she sat down next to him. I remembered something from my history classes in university. There were old Korean texts that mentioned strange things happening with the moon and the ocean. Minho opened one of the old books. The pages were yellow and the writing was in classical Korean characters. This book was written during the Goryeo dynasty, almost 1,000 years ago. The court astronomers wrote about times when the tides stopped following their normal patterns. Hana looked at the ancient text. Even though she could not read the old writing style, she could see drawings of the moon and ocean waves. What does it say exactly? Minho translated slowly. It says that every 10,000 years, the moon awakens from its sleep. When this happens, the ocean becomes restless and the tides change their rhythm. The astronomers called the moon a sleeping guardian that sometimes stirs. A sleeping guardian, Hana repeated. That is a strange way to describe the moon. There is more. The text says that when the moon awakens, the sea creatures begin to sing songs that have been forgotten. The whales and dolphins gather in the deep water and make sounds that no human has ever heard. Hana suddenly remembered something. Minho, we need to call Dr. Tae-yoon at the Marine Biology Institute. He studies whale behavior. The next morning, Dr. Tae-yoon came to visit them at the Oceanographic Institute. He was a quiet man who had spent most of his career listening to whale songs and studying how marine animals communicate. I am glad you called me, Tae said as he sat down with Hana, June, and Minho. I have been noticing very strange behavior from whales and dolphins in the past few weeks. What kind of strange behavior? Hana asked. They are gathering in large groups in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Hundreds of whales are swimming together. which almost never happens. And they are making sounds I have never heard before. Tay opened his laptop and played an audio recording. Strange, haunting sounds filled the room. The whale songs were unlike anything Hannah had ever heard. They were beautiful, but also mysterious, like music from another world. These recordings were made just 2 days ago, Tay explained. The whales have been singing like this constantly. They swim in circles and point their heads toward the sky, almost like they are trying to communicate with something above the water. June leaned forward in his chair. Could they be responding to the changes in the moon? That is what I think. Whales are very sensitive to changes in their environment. If something is different about the moon's gravitational pull, they would notice it before humans do. Minho looked excited. This fits with what the old Korean texts say. The sea creatures sing forgotten songs when the moon awakens. Hannah felt like pieces of a puzzle were starting to fit together. So we have the moon showing strange lights, the tides getting weaker, and whales behaving in ways they never have before. These things must be connected. That afternoon, Suki called from the space observatory. Her voice sounded urgent over the phone. Hannah, you need to come here right away. We have been monitoring the lights on the moon, and they are getting brighter. But that is not the most important thing. What is it? The lights are pulsing in a regular pattern. Like a signal, like something is trying to communicate. Hannah felt a chill run through her body. We will be right there. As she hung up the phone, she looked out the window at the harbor. The fishing boats were coming back from their morning trips, but she noticed something strange. The water level in the harbor was much lower than it should be at this time of day. The moon was communicating. The whales were singing mysterious songs, and the ocean was behaving in ways that defied everything she knew about marine science. Hannah realized that their investigation was leading them toward a discovery that would change how humans understood their place in the universe. The moon was not just a lifeless rock in space. It was something much more mysterious and possibly much more important than anyone had ever imagined. The investigation was revealing secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. Hannah and Minho rushed to the National Space Observatory. The sun was setting as they arrived, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Dr. Suki Choi was waiting for them at the entrance, her face filled with excitement and worry. The signals from the moon have become much stronger, Suki said as she led them inside. We have been recording them for the past 6 hours. They went to the main observation room where several scientists were working at computer stations. The room buzzed with activity. Everyone looked focused and slightly nervous. Show them the pattern analysis, Suki told one of her colleagues. A young scientist named Dr. Jin Woo turned his computer screen toward them. We fed the light signals into our computer system. The patterns are definitely not random. They follow mathematical sequences. On the screen, Hannah could see lines and numbers that looked like a complex code. What kind of mathematical sequences? Prime numbers, geometric progressions, and something that looks like binary code. This is definitely artificial intelligence trying to communicate. Minho stared at the screen with wide eyes. You mean there is a computer on the moon? Not just a computer, Suki said. Something much more advanced. The signals are coming from the far side of the moon, the side we cannot see from Earth. Hannah felt her heart racing. Can we send signals back? We have been trying, but we do not know the right language or protocol. It is like trying to talk to someone when you do not speak their language. Dr. Jun Park arrived at the observatory an hour later, bringing Dr. Tae-yoon with him. Tae carried a large case containing his whale song recording equipment. I thought, you should hear the latest whale recordings, Tae said as he set up his equipment. The songs have changed again. He played the new recordings. The whale songs were more complex now, with multiple layers of sound. Some parts sounded almost like the musical patterns humans make, but other parts were completely alien. How many whales are singing together? Suki asked. More than we have ever seen before. Thousands of whales from different species are gathering in the Pacific Ocean. They are all singing the same basic song, but each species adds its own part. Minho had been listening carefully to the whale songs. Suddenly his face lit up with an idea. Dr. Choi, can you play the moon signals as sound instead of just showing them as lights? Suki looked puzzled. What do you mean? The light patterns pulse at different speeds, right? What if we convert those pulse speeds into sound frequencies? Maybe we can hear what the moon is trying to say. It took the scientists 30 minutes to write a computer program that could convert the light signals into audio. When they played the result, everyone in the room fell silent. The sounds coming from their speakers were almost identical to the whale songs. This is impossible, June whispered. Tay was the first to understand what they were hearing. The whales are not just responding to the moon, they are communicating with it. They know the language. Hana felt like her understanding of the world was turning upside down. But how could whales know how to talk to something on the moon? Maybe they have always known, Minho said quietly. Maybe this has happened before. The next morning, Minho went back to the Institute library. He was determined to find more information in the ancient texts. This time, he brought a professor of classical Korean literature to help him translate the most difficult passages. Professor Nam was an elderly woman who had spent her life studying old Korean writings. She examined the astronomical text that Minho had found and several other ancient books. These texts are very unusual, Professor Nam said after reading for several hours. They describe the moon as having a mechanical nature. Look at this passage. She pointed to a section of text written in elegant brushstrokes. It says that the moon is like a great machine that watches over the earth. Sometimes the machine needs to adjust itself, and when this happens, the sea animals help it by singing the old songs. The old songs? Minho asked. Yes, the text says that before humans learned to speak, the sea animals were the guardians of the songs that keep the world in balance. When the moon machine needs to make changes, the sea animals remember the songs and sing them. Minho felt excited. So the whales are like helpers for whatever is on the moon? According to these texts, yes, but there is more. Look at this drawing. Professor Nam showed him a detailed illustration in one of the books. It showed the moon with what looked like buildings or structures on its surface. Below the moon, the drawing showed whales in the ocean with lines connecting them to the lunar structures. This was drawn over 800 years ago, Professor Nam said. How could ancient people know about structures on the moon? That afternoon, Minho shared his discoveries with the rest of the team. They gathered in Hana's office, spreading the old books and translations across her desk. If these texts are accurate, Hana said, then whatever is on the moon has been there for thousands of years. And whales have been communicating with it all along. Dr. Tae-yoon looked thoughtful. That would explain why whales have such complex social structures and intelligence. They have been carrying information across generations. But why is the system activating now? June asked. Suki had been quiet during most of the discussion. Now she spoke up. I think I know why. Our space observatory has been tracking changes in the solar system. The gravitational influences from other planets have been shifting. Maybe the moon system is responding to these changes. Like an automatic maintenance system, Minho added. Exactly. But something seems wrong with the process this time. Instead of making small adjustments, the moon is moving away from Earth completely. That evening, the team worked late at the space observatory. They tried different ways to communicate with the moon signals, but nothing worked. The artificial intelligence on the moon continued sending its mathematical patterns, but it did not respond to their attempts at contact. Around midnight, Dr. Tae-yoon had an idea. What if we are trying to talk to the wrong system? The whales seem to understand the moon's language. Maybe we need to communicate through them. How would we do that? Hana asked. I have been studying whale communication for 20 years. I know how to make sounds that whales can understand. What if we teach the whales to carry a message to the moon? It sounded crazy, but they were running out of options. The moon continued to drift away from Earth, and the tides were getting weaker every day. Coastal cities around the world were reporting unusual flooding and marine life disruptions. Suki looked up from her computer. There is something else. We have detected similar signals coming from other locations. What do you mean? The signals are not just coming from the moon. We are picking up very faint signals from the ocean floor in several locations around the Pacific. Tay leaned forward. That is where the whales are gathering. In the same areas where you are detecting signals. So there are systems on the ocean floor too. It looks that way. And I think they are all connected. The moon system, the ocean systems, and the whales. They are all part of the same network. Hana stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the moon rising over the hills. It looked peaceful and normal, but she now knew it was something far more complex and mysterious. We are not just dealing with a moon that is drifting away, she said to the group. We are dealing with an ancient system that maintains the balance of our entire planet. And somehow humans have never been part of that system. Until now, Minho said. Until now, Hana agreed. The revelation changed everything they thought they knew about Earth, the moon, and their place in the universe. The investigation had become something much bigger than they had ever imagined. 2 weeks had passed since the team discovered the ancient network. The situation was getting worse every day. Hannah stood in the emergency command center that had been set up at the Seoul Oceanographic Institute. News reports from around the world played on multiple screens, showing the chaos that was spreading across the planet. The tide in Tokyo Bay has dropped 3 meters below normal, reported one news anchor. Ships cannot leave the harbor, and thousands of fish have died. Another screen showed flooding in coastal cities. In Miami, unprecedented high tides have forced the evacuation of downtown areas. Scientists say the tidal patterns are completely unpredictable. Dr. June Park looked exhausted. He had been working day and night with coastal authorities, trying to predict when and where the next tidal disasters would strike. But his computer models were failing. The moon's irregular movement made it impossible to forecast the tides. We cannot keep up with the changes, June said to Hana. Yesterday, I predicted low tide in Bizen, but instead there was a massive wave that flooded the port. People are losing trust in our predictions. Minho entered the command center carrying a stack of papers. His usually neat appearance was disheveled and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. I have the latest calculations from Dr. Choi's observatory. The moon is now moving away from Earth at twice the speed it was 2 weeks ago. How much time do we have? Hana asked. If the pattern continues, the moon will be too far away to control the tides within 3 months. But that is not the worst part. Minho spread his calculations on the table. The ocean currents are starting to change. The Gulf Stream is slowing down. The current that brings warm water from the tropics to northern Europe is getting weaker. Hannah felt a cold fear in her stomach. What does that mean for the climate? Europe could become much colder. The Amazon rainforest depends on nutrients brought by ocean currents. If the currents stop, the rainforest could die. The entire climate system of Earth is connected to the ocean currents, and the ocean currents are controlled by the tides. Dr. Suki Choi arrived at the command center with urgent news. We have been monitoring the signals from the moon and the ocean floor. The systems are trying to communicate with each other, but something is blocking the signals. What kind of blocking? Hannah asked. We think it is electromagnetic interference from human technology. Radio waves, satellite signals, cell phone networks. The ancient systems were designed to work in a world without electronic interference. Dr. Tae-yoon, who had been listening to whale songs in the corner of the room, suddenly stood up. The whales are getting desperate. Their songs are becoming more urgent. They know something is very wrong. He played his latest recording. The whale's song sounded distressed, almost like crying. Thousands more whales have joined the gathering in the Pacific. They are swimming in tight circles and calling constantly. They are trying to reach the systems, but they cannot make the connection. Hannah looked around the room at her colleagues. They had discovered an incredible secret about their planet, but they were helpless to fix the problem. The ancient network that had maintained Earth's climate for thousands of years was breaking down, and they did not know how to repair it. "We need to try something drastic," Hannah said. "Dr. Yoon, you said the whales understand the communication system. What if we could amplify their songs?" "What do you mean?" "The Institute has underwater communication equipment that we use to talk to submarines. It can send sound signals across the entire Pacific Ocean. What if we use it to make the whale songs louder?" Tay looked interested. "That might work. If we can amplify the whale songs, maybe the ocean floor systems will receive them clearly." "But we need to be careful," Suki warned. "We do not fully understand the system. If we send the wrong signals, we might make things worse." Despite the risks, they decided to try. The next day, the team traveled to the Institute's underwater research station on the East Coast. The station had powerful sonar equipment that could send sound signals deep into the ocean. The research station was built on a pier that extended far into the sea. Underwater cables connected it to sensitive listening equipment on the ocean floor. Dr. Tay Yoon set up his whale song recordings while the technical staff prepared the amplification system. "We will start with the most recent whale songs," Tay explained, "the ones that seem most urgent." They lowered the underwater speakers into the sea and began broadcasting the amplified whale songs. The sounds traveled through the water at incredible volume, reaching across hundreds of miles of ocean. At first, nothing happened. The whale songs echoed through the deep water, but there was no response from the ocean floor systems. The team waited anxiously, watching their instruments for any sign of activity. Then, after 2 hours, something amazing happened. The underwater listening equipment began picking up responses, not from the ocean floor, but from whales throughout the Pacific Ocean. "The whales are answering," Tay said with excitement. "They hear our amplified signals and they are responding." More and more whales joined the communication. Their songs created a vast network of sound that spread across the entire Pacific Ocean. The ocean had become like a giant telephone system, with whales carrying messages from one area to another. But still, the ocean floor systems remained silent. "Maybe the systems need a specific sequence," Minho suggested, "like a password or activation code." "But what would the password be?" Hannah asked. Minho looked at his translations of the ancient Korean texts. The old writings mentioned songs that have been forgotten. Maybe there are specific whale songs that act as keys to the system. Dr. Tay Yoon had an idea. "I have recordings of whale songs from my grandfather's research. He studied whale communication 50 years ago, before there was so much electronic interference in the ocean. Maybe the older songs contain the codes we need." They spent the next day going through decades of whale song recordings. Tay's grandfather had been a pioneer in marine biology, and his old recordings contained whale songs that had not been heard in many years. "Try this one," Tay said, playing a recording from 1975. "This is a song from a group of blue whales that my grandfather recorded near Japan. He said he had never heard anything like it." They amplified the old whale song and broadcast it into the ocean. This time, the response was immediate and dramatic. The underwater instruments detected a powerful signal coming from the ocean floor. The signal was so strong that it caused the research station's equipment to vibrate. On the screens, they could see energy patterns spreading across the ocean floor like lightning. "It worked," Suki said in amazement. "The ocean floor system is responding." But their celebration was short-lived. The signals from the ocean floor were not going to the moon. Instead, they were creating chaos in the water. The sea around the research station began to churn and bubble. Waves crashed against the pier with unusual force. "Something is wrong," Hannah shouted over the noise of the churning water. "The system is not connecting properly." On their instruments, they could see that the ocean floor system was trying to communicate with the moon, but the signals were not reaching their destination. The moon continued to drift away from Earth, and the ocean systems were becoming more and more unstable. "We activated the system, but it is broken," June said. "The network has been damaged by thousands of years of interference." As night fell, the team realized they had made the crisis worse. The ocean floor systems were now active but could not connect with the moon. The result was complete chaos in the ocean currents. Tidal waves began forming in the Pacific, and the weather patterns around the world started to change rapidly. "We need help," Hannah said. "We cannot fix this alone." "Help from whom?" Minho asked. Hannah looked up at the moon, which was now noticeably smaller in the sky. "From whoever built this system in the first place. They are our only hope." The crisis had reached a point where the survival of life on Earth depended on making contact with an ancient intelligence that had been silent for thousands of years. The ocean around the research station was calming down after 3 hours of violent waves. Hannah and her team sat in the control room, exhausted and worried. Their attempt to fix the ancient system had made everything worse. Now both the moon and ocean floor systems were active, but could not communicate with each other. "Look at this," Dr. Suki Choi said, pointing to her computer screen. "The moon signals are getting stronger, but they are different now. The patterns of light from the moon had changed. Instead of the mathematical sequences they had seen before, the signals now looked more like pictures or symbols." Minho studied the new patterns. "These look like instructions, as if something is trying to teach us how to fix the system." Dr. Tae-yoon had been listening to the whale songs through his headphones. Suddenly, he sat up straight. "The whales are changing their songs again. They sound excited, like they understand something we do not." He played the latest recordings for the group. The whale songs were more organized now, with clear patterns that repeated over and over. Different groups of whales were singing different parts, like a giant ocean choir. "They are not just singing random songs," Tae realized. "They are singing in a specific order. Each group has a different part of the communication sequence." Hannah had an idea. What if the whales know how to repair the connection between the moon and ocean systems? They have been doing this for thousands of years. But how do we learn their language? June asked. Young Minho had been thinking about the ancient Korean texts. "The old writings say that humans were not part of the original system, but maybe we can become part of it now." "What do you mean?" "The whales carry the songs from one place to another. What if we help them? We have technology that can send signals around the world instantly. We could connect whale groups in different oceans." It was a bold idea. The team would need to coordinate with marine biologists around the world to record whale songs in different locations, then share those recordings so whales everywhere could learn the complete communication sequence. Dr. Suki Choi contacted space observatories in Australia, Chile, and Hawaii. Dr. Tae-yoon called marine research stations in California, Norway, and Japan. Within hours, they had scientists around the world listening to whales and recording their songs. "The whales in the Atlantic Ocean are singing a different part of the sequence than the Pacific whales," reported Dr. Maria Santos from Brazil. "And the whales near Antarctica have completely different songs," added Dr. Eric Larson from Norway. As they collected whale songs from around the world, a pattern emerged. Each group of whales knew part of an enormous communication sequence, but no single group knew the complete song. "It is like a puzzle," Minho explained. Each whale population has one piece. We need to put all the pieces together. Working through the night, the team arranged the whale songs from different oceans into a complete sequence. When they played the combined recording, it created a beautiful and complex song that lasted almost an hour. Now we need to teach this complete song to whales everywhere, Hannah said. They used the underwater communication systems at research stations around the world to broadcast the complete whale song sequence. The plan was ambitious. Teach whales in every ocean the full communication protocol so they could properly connect the moon and ocean floor systems. The response from the whales was immediate and overwhelming. Whale populations that had never communicated before began singing to each other across vast distances. The ocean became filled with coordinated songs as thousands of whales learned and shared the complete sequence. But the most amazing thing happened when all the whale populations were singing the complete song together. The ocean floor systems began responding in harmony. Energy patterns spread across the seafloor in organized waves, and for the first time, clear signals traveled from the ocean to the moon. The moon is responding, Suki announced excitedly. The signals are getting through. On the screens, they watched as the moon's movement began to slow. The ancient system was finally working properly. The moon stopped drifting away from Earth and began a slow return to its proper orbit. Over the following weeks, the effects were dramatic. Tides around the world returned to normal patterns. The ocean currents that had been disrupted began flowing in their traditional paths. The climate systems that had been thrown into chaos gradually stabilized, but the changes went beyond just fixing the immediate crisis. The re-established communication network between the moon, ocean, and whales began sharing information that had been lost for thousands of years. The ocean floor systems are sending us data about water temperature, currents, and marine life that we never knew existed, June reported. It is like having a complete map of every ocean on Earth. The moon system shared information about weather patterns, gravitational effects, and even predictions about natural disasters. For the first time, humans had access to a planetary monitoring system that had been operating for millennia. Dr. Tae-yoon made perhaps the most incredible discovery. The whales are not just carrying communication signals. They are also sharing scientific data that their ancestors collected over thousands of years. They know things about the ocean that we are just beginning to understand. Minho spent months studying the information that came through the whale communication network. Different whale species specialize in different types of data. Blue whales track deep ocean currents. Humpback whales monitor water chemistry. Sperm whales study the deepest parts of the ocean. The ancient system had been designed not just to maintain planetary stability, but to gather and preserve knowledge about Earth's environment. Whales had been the guardians of this knowledge, passing it down through generations in their songs. As the immediate crisis ended, Hannah realized that their discovery would change everything about how humans understood their planet. They were no longer alone in managing Earth's complex systems. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the new Earth-Luna Communication Institute that had been built next to the Seoul Oceanographic Institute. The building housed scientists from around the world who worked to understand and maintain the ancient network. Minho, now Dr. Lee, after completing his degree early, led a team of young researchers who studied whale communication. They had learned to interpret much of the whale's scientific data and were making discoveries about the ocean every day. We still have so much to learn, Minho said as he showed Hannah his latest research. The whales know about underwater mountain ranges we have never seen, ocean currents that do not appear on any human map, and marine ecosystems that we did not know existed. Dr. Suki Choi managed the Lunar Communication Project. Her team maintained constant contact with the moon systems, receiving weather predictions and gravitational data that helped prevent natural disasters. The moon systems can predict earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and severe storms days before they happen, Suki explained. We are learning to read the early warning signs. Dr. June Park worked with coastal authorities around the world, using the ancient tidal data to make perfect predictions about ocean behavior. No longer were coastal communities surprised by unexpected floods or droughts, and Dr. Tae Yoon became the world's first whale communication specialist, teaching other scientists how to understand and work with the ocean's most intelligent inhabitants. The whales have accepted us as partners in maintaining the planet, Tae told Hana, but they expect us to be responsible partners. We must learn to think about the health of the entire Earth, not just human needs. As Hana looked out the window of the institute at the harbor, she saw fishing boats working in harmony with whale pods that had come close to shore. The whales no longer avoided human areas. Instead, they had become partners in monitoring and protecting the ocean. The moon continued to control the tides, but now humanity understood that they were part of a much larger system. They were not masters of their world, but participants in an ancient collaboration designed to preserve life on Earth. The crisis had ended, but a new age had begun. An age where humans, whales, and ancient systems worked together to protect the planet they all called home.